So, you want to get into cat fantasy? Well, here's some general information that may help you along the way, but I also recommend joining the general Discord server for the sole purpose of people there are pretty helpful. Off the rip, a lot of the banners you're seeing right now may be gone. Chocolate and Vanilla, depending on the time you're watching this video, are already gone. They are collab characters, they will not be coming back. Dorothy will be gone, based on the time it is when I'm making this video, but she will rerun. Shiro Combat Edition will be your newcomer exclusive. Whenever you start your account, she's going to be here. Keep in mind, the pity on this banner does not transfer to your event banner, so if you want her, you better be prepared to either go all the way to pity and grab her or skip her entirely. Your regular banner is your standard banner. You're gonna get an influx of pulls for this one, and keep in mind, if you don't intend on using a unit and you get dupes of them, you can eventually exchange them within the shop. In the shop here, your basic R variation of cores is just for general guideline materials. These are used for equipment. I honestly don't recommend purchasing any of these unless it is the Star Up 5 or 5. These Pathos particles are incredibly expensive. Maybe don't go for them unless you're in a very emergency situation and you have an abundance of these. Pulls are pulls. This is one pull per 1,000. Not that worth unless you have everything else you need. Intermediate cores, quick sell vouchers, and Pathos particles are the only thing available here. Go with whatever you need. Advanced cores. Recombinators are extremely useful, yes, but you will get these from other variations and other activities. My main mindset here is your SSR wish ticket guarantees you an SSR from the Fated banner. If you already have all the SSRs you want and they're already max stars, then you can proceed to ignore this unless you're trying to collect everybody else at max stars. But if you're not going to build them, it's not valuable enough. Recombinators are valuable. That's 5 stat rerolls. This is an additional copy on a unit that is currently featured. This is, as of right now, Triss Heartfelt Healing. She's a healer. Her 3-star copy isn't necessarily that good. You'd ideally want her to be 5 stars to really get some good value of her as an attack buffer. But that's beyond the point. We'll talk about that later on. This is your arena shop. Once you unlock the arena, which is basically a PvP, you're going to start getting some points and currencies for these. These are the different sets. Before you ask, luck is a stat that determines the likelihood of a character initially pulling or starting off with a 2-star upgraded card. Useful for units that don't really have a stat they particularly scale with, maybe a healer, maybe a pure support. Not for anybody else. Endurance, it's like your defense, but better. Honestly, not that worth unless you need somebody to be a pure tank and they don't have any form of self-sustain. Penetration, this is for your armor pen based units. Get it. If you don't reliably have enough of this currency to get your stat going, you can go with the crit set, but ideally at that point you look for armor pen substat. These are expensive chips, they're very good. Your top priority will be your refinement locks. In this instance, Maverick Echo is a fine unit. She's light, so she doesn't necessarily belong to any particular path and can fill out that 4th slot as a flex, but honestly I don't think she's worthwhile enough strictly because she's more of a PvP unit. And even then, she only gives a shield to one character. If it was AoE, I could say you could justify pulling her. Pull her if you are a collector and just want to have her. Otherwise, she's probably your lowest priority within the shop, unless you have an excess of these. Unless you bought all of these refinement locks and you want this Echo character. Rising, honestly, once again, the previous rules still stick. My recommendation is get the enhancement medals. If you have enough Star Up 5ers, which you will get from other shops, then you can go for Marine Maverick. Phantom, follow the path here. Enhancement medals first. Enhancement medals second. Your 3rd shop, Recombinator. Then Star Up equipment, then Advanced Pathos material. And then finally, you can focus on pulls and the level 3 fun pack. Tip shop, ignore everything except for the Flower of Light. These upgrade your character outfits. They're significant improvements to your overall damage. And some nice stats. Clan shop, you're going for strategy points. Once you have those bought out, then you can focus on enhancement medals. Everything else is just okay. Recombinators are your last goal, but your clan needs to reach level 10. So I just explained a bunch of features to you and you probably have no idea what those mean. So let's go over to the combatants so you can actually show you. First and foremost, I will be using Combat Shiro because you all have technical access to her. Realistically speaking, let's talk about Echo Mechanic Cat. Affection matters. You need to fish for the fish to give them the meals, which increase their affection. Their affection, in turn, determines the amount of mood they have for your cafe, so you don't have to replace them as often. Raise affection. Next up, if you're worried about constellations, this is what they look like over time. Star effects do give your units new abilities or increase the base scaling of their power. I recommend getting star ups on characters you like or know you're going to be using long term, but hey, that's just me. You can go the route of horizontal investment, and then if they have a rerun, come back with vertical. Equipment, this is your artifact. We'll be going over to an SR character to look at them. Each of these individual substats you can re-roll. Orange is good, red is highest tier. This is, for example, a red tier. You'll know if it's good strictly because you can see the probability in the highest max roll. This red tier roll here is crit rate. The max roll for crit rate is 8%. Don't touch it at that point. If it's a stat you know you like or a stat you can use in another unit, you can begin to justify swapping it over to somebody else because it's incredibly difficult to get that. At least the good rolls. Your recombinators allow you to come here and then individually re-roll the stat. So you can take a piece of gear if it already has a valuable red substat and slowly re-roll it to get the stat you want. Otherwise, maybe don't consider leveling it. Outfits. These are base for some characters. If you're looking at somebody like Chocola, she has this paid outfit here. These are the stats that come with. You will have to level up outfits to essentially unlock the additional stats they gain. That's where the tip shop comes in. That's why I say only buy those, because these determine your outfit levels. And yes, the stats do transfer. So level up all the outfits and then pick the outfit that you think actually fits the character the most, and you can wear that as a cosmetic. Pathos weapons are incredibly expensive. Prioritize your DPS, your DPS, your DPS. This is strictly because they get the most value out of it. Other characters, if we're going to an example here, like Vanilla, her Pathos weapon is okay. As you're seeing here, it's not really benefiting her in any capacity. The endurance is just a passive defensive stat buff. It's not really any stat she does give. She is essentially a unit that, in all intensiveness and all seriousness, is a support. None of the stats here matter that much. It's your overall power level, or really just power level. I call it because Nikkei logic. As you see here, if we're going over to a unit that has a higher level Pathos weapon, like Shiro for example, the Pathos weapon in this instance isn't giving her the most value. The equipment is, her base level is, her ascension is, and then the combat archive, which we'll explain later on. I.e., Pathos weapons are good, but they shouldn't be your top priority. Equipment is probably more valuable for a lot of you earlier on, especially if it increases stats. Speaking of stats, if you are confused about what something does, click the icon. Click the icon. It's a bit finicky. Click the icon. Don't click the word, it's not going to do anything. Every unit has a different type of scaling. Shiro here scales off dire damage. Dire damage is your essentially debuff. That's why she applies debuff, and then dire damage builds off that debuff. Star effects can help a unit with their own application. She has Star Up 1, i.e. she's applying vulnerability at base. This reduces her reliance on other characters that can apply those respective debuffs. Now, since I mentioned it before, let's talk about the combat archive. From leveling up your cafe, or just from collecting the passive income from your cafe, you will get the opportunity to level up your combat archive. Depending on the unit you have, these will be buffs to them. These occur for R units or SSR units. These buffs will greatly improve this stat effectiveness. Even though you're looking at this and you're saying, hey, it's attack, it's defense, it's HP, it's not crit, this is still very beneficial because each upgrade increases their power level. That power transfers to all your units. As you see here, having all of the units, they don't have to be within the same team, but just having them increases the base stats. This is why it's actually beneficial to collect the units. In this instance, even though I would only use Evelina, having all the characters, which I don't because I don't have Forest Ranger Asura, is losing me a 25% base stat improvement. Over time, you will eventually unlock the ability to snag some of these, nab them in here, and slowly upgrade them. Your strategy boost is where you spend your strategy points. Ignore the combatant archive, focus on profit strategy. This reduces the stamina cost for any of the stages you do. Please focus on this, it's incredibly valuable. And then finally, my UID is the bottom left corner. Join a clan, this is mine. Nightmare's Call is your version of Abyss, your MOC, and so on. It's your endgame. This is your initial starter section. It's not that bad. These individual pieces here that you get allow you to slowly obtain shards of an SSR. Once you have 100, you can fuse to make that SSR or get a dupe of them, depending on if you already have them. This and this reset. Both of these are your medium and hard variations of your Abyss. It will start you off, if you've cleared the previous section, it will start you off at stage 6, so you can go back and do it, or clear stage 6 for all the previous rewards. Anytime you do it, you will get shards. Once again, it's how you slowly max out your characters. Keep that in mind. This is your Nikkei Battle Tower. This is where you come in, you grab the materials. Because this is passive income, there's a lot of passive income within this game, and you just passively climb the towers. This is your main tower. You climb it, you can essentially auto it, and leave it, the game will progress to the next stage until you die. Blue, green, and red towers are dependent on blue, green, and red units. An example here, this entire team is blue, I can only use blue units, so I can't use any of the other teammates. This incentivizes you to have multiple variations of team compositions because you're probably gonna need them, to be honest. Abyss kind of incentivizes you to have multiple archetypes because certain content will want elements that are being countered, blue, green, and red. Now, let's talk about your Fated Banner because you're probably going to want to focus on it. I'd say your top priority for your Fated Banner will be Forest Ranger Asura, she's a great DPS. Nofret, a great DPS with a little bit of self-sustain. Anja, strictly because you will get 2 variations of her base copy, her first copy, and then her second copy, so you'll have 2 stars on her. Her third copy allows her shield, which is initially single target, to be AoE. Triss, because she's a healer and dispels debuffs. And then your last slot is kind of dependent. You can go with Combat Shiro, but she needs a little bit of setup and a little bit of ramp up time. Echo, Sparkle Rider, steals SP from the enemy, which can stop them from getting their ults, but in PvP it's not that useful. Yunkan and Junpei respectively are DOT-oriented units. If you plan on going for Dorothy in the future, both of these make sense to grab. Yunkan has a very good Star 5, which applies Curse, which is essentially your DOT, every turn, past the second turn. My beginner picks would be Forest Ranger Asura, Haley because she's a great damage dealer, Nofret, Anja, and Triss. If you're looking at these designs and maybe you don't like them, hey, as long as you understand that you are missing some great characters, you can begin to pick out other units that you do like. I like Echo for a lot, so I prioritize her over somebody like Haley because Haley has a really bad design to me. Same thing with Asura. You can use these SSR tickets, which you will eventually be getting, pull on this banner, grab the unit, one of them, and you're set. Either way, that's some basic information for Cat Fantasy. I will be going more in depth in a future video, so hey, subscribe because maybe you're into that. Either way, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.